you were a kid back in 2010 and owned a Wii, chances are you gave Epic Mickey a try. Disney has always been about these bright and colorful characters, and Mickey was no exception. No matter what decade we're talking about, whether you meet Mickey in the Disney parks or watch some of his earliest cartoons, he's always stood for perseverance, kindness, and love. But, let's be real here, Mickey isn't perfect. He makes mistakes, he makes selfish decisions, and for the longest time, Disney tried to steer clear of showing that side of him. But then they tried something a little different.
Only then can a mischievous mouse become an epic hero.
Epic Mickey was like a rebrand for Mickey, transforming him from a traditional cartoon into something darker and grittier. I mean, just look at the cover art. This was unlike anything we'd ever seen from Mickey before, and honestly, we haven't seen anything like it since. My love for Epic Mickey has been around since day one. I remember picking up the game when it first released and absolutely loving it. Has it aged? Yeah, but I mean, what hasn't? The camera still drives me nuts. But that doesn't matter. For a Disney fan who loves a good story, this game was incredible. And then Epic Mickey 2 came out and, well, you know, not everyone was a fan of it. There's a lot to unpack here when it comes to Epic Mickey 2, and to help me with that, I invited my friend Jim Meskimen to talk a bit more about his involvement with the game. Now, Jim is a super talented impressionist. You probably know him as the current voice of the genie from Aladdin.
Name's Genie of the Lamp. How you doing? Just make a wish and all your problems will be solved. Magic at your service all day, 24/7 and 365! That's right, I'm all yours.
But in the Epic Mickey games, he's the voice of the Mad Doctor, which, yes, that means we're going to be getting into the singing from the second game.
Hi, I'm Jim Meskimen, and I'm an actor. So that means a lot of things these days, because a person doesn't just have to walk on stage, be in front of a camera or in front of a microphone, as I am right now in my booth. You can do commercials, and as I've done many times, video games, audiobooks, films, TV, and on stage too. I do a live show called Jim Impressions, which features a lot of celebrity voices and music and stories and songs. And Epic Mickey came up, and they said there's this Mad Doctor character. It's from an earlier. The Mad Doctor appears in some short, probably from the 1930s. And so they said, this is the voice we're trying to match. And in Epic Mickey 1, that's kind of all he does, if I recall. He kind of rubs his hands gleefully and runs around and grunts and has moments of disappointment. But I remember that we recorded a lot of things. Were frankly a lot of non-verbal things, and certainly no songs.
Jim shares some insights on how the characters act in the games, which is something I think often gets overlooked. Think about it this way. In most games, if your character wasn't there, nothing would get done. Mario has to rescue the princess, Jack and Daxter have to help the townsfolk. But here, everyone has their own lives. Near the start of the game, you meet Horace Horsecollar, a cartoon character famous from the 1930s and 40s. Sure, I mean, he reminisces with Mickey about the old days, but he's not just sitting around, he's opened up his own detective agency. He could use Mickey's help, but he's perfectly capable of handling things all on his own. That's what makes this game stand out to me. Everyone has their own lives. And then there's Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Now, Oswald was the main selling point here. We've all heard the story about how Disney traded Al Michaels for Oswald back in 2006. But let's be honest, no one really knew who Oswald was back then, other than part of the Disney family. So when he was introduced to the game, I'm sure many expected him to be happy and cheerful, ready to help Mickey out. But when you meet him, he's mad. No, he's downright angry at Mickey. He sees Mickey as his replacement, the one who stole his spotlight. And you know what? It makes perfect sense. Mickey did replace him. He took everything that he loved. But as the game progresses, Oswald goes from seeing Mickey as a rival to a friend to even a brother of sorts. For me, this was the best part of the game, seeing Oswald's character development. It felt real, it felt natural. Of course, Epic Mickey wasn't just known for its characters, the levels and gameplay also made it memorable. Kind of. See, a big focus for this game when it was being advertised was that the decisions you make would change the story's ending. With Warren Spector directing, the guy behind games such as Deus Ex, we knew that we were in for something special, but instead, the game's choices didn't really do much. Now, on my first playthrough, I didn't know how to make all the right choices for the perfect ending. I mean, let's look at the clock tower fight. You can either paint his arms to make him friendly, or thin them so he breaks apart. Now, this wasn't really clear to me, so I went for the latter, and by the end of the game, my choices were reflected in the ending. The problem, though, is that no matter what you do, the ending is pretty much the same. Mickey's a hero, he leaves Wasteland, and he's friends with Oswald. Whether you make good choices or not, the outcome doesn't change. I wish the ending had varied a bit more, even if it just meant Oswald being a little more hesitant to be friends with Mickey. But hey, I'm nitpicking here. Overall, Epic Mickey has its flaws, but nothing too major. The game's fun, the music was incredible, and the characters are really well thought out. And that's understandable considering how long it took to develop. Epic Mickey was in the works since 2003, even before Disney had the rights to use Oswald. 7 years of development. It's not perfect by any means, but you can see the love that went into it. And then 2 years later, we got Epic Mickey 2, which took everything good about the original, chucked it out a window, lit a match, and set the whole thing on fire. I'm only half joking. You see, the big issue between Epic Mickey 1 and 2 was that the sequel didn't know how to recapture that dark atmosphere it had already created. Let's compare the openings here. In Epic Mickey 1, Mickey accidentally creates the enemies, gets dragged into Wasteland, nearly loses his heart to the Mad Doctor, and defeats the most terrifying dentist tool I've ever seen. I'm not saying this opening gave me nightmares, I'm just heavily implying it. Now let's take a look at Epic Mickey 2's opening.
Friends, I stand before you a changed man. I've seen the error of my ways and now I've got a plan.
Can you spot the difference? Kind of feels like if Tim Burton made High School Musical. Personally, I don't mind the songs. I think some of them are actually kind of good. Now, were they the right choice for this game?
Then they said, now in this one, he actually has a few musical numbers. I said, are you kidding? And as it turned out, he has quite a few musical numbers. Not simple musical numbers. They were long, complex, to me, ballads, and like Andrew Lloyd Webber structured things. This is daunting, because I can learn things pretty quick, but when they were very subtle and the changes were very, very delicate, and it's like, well, it's not that note, it goes up a little bit. You hear that note? And oh yeah, I hear that change. Yeah, So I had to be walked through it very methodically, very patiently by Ben Hoppy, who was the director of the voice actors. And I had just a simple piano track that I was singing to, and we just went through it again and again and picked up little bits and repaired little things and assembled those songs, which are big and expansive and operatic and all in this kind of voice like this. So it was exhausting and a real challenge. And I'd come out of it going, man, thank God, Ben, you know what you're talking about, because he does read music and he does have a musical sense and is a very good director.
While Disney is known for its musical numbers, this was a strange direction for a game that started with such a dark tone. Everyone who played Epic Mickey 1 loved it despite its flaws, but when Epic Mickey 2 came out, there was just so much disappointment. First off, the characters I was praising earlier, gone. I mean, they're in the game, but they don't really matter. They're about as cliche as you can get. Oswald, who is such an interesting character in the first game, is now just spouting the cheesiest lines you can imagine.
Come on, let's go scare up a ghost. Okay, that doesn't sound good. Come on, Hortensia. Doesn't everybody deserve a second chance?
It's painful. This isn't the Oswald we knew from the first game or his original cartoons. How do I know this? This book does a fantastic job explaining Oswald's history in these original cartoons. Oswald was a troublemaker, he loved mischief, and he enjoyed entertaining others and himself. But here, he's none of that and he feels like a joke. Mickey also feels very one-dimensional. In the first game, he was responsible for everything bad that happened in Wasteland. He kept it a secret, he eventually did tell Oswald, and he took responsibility in the end. In Epic Mickey 2, Mickey's just kind of along for the ride, no real reason to come back. Gus just showed up on his TV and was like, "We need your help," and Mickey went, "Oh, okay, I'll come back." There wasn't any drive or reason for him to be there, other than plot. And don't get me started on the decisions. Even though the choices in the first game didn't really change the ending much, they still felt valuable. Here, the choices mainly affect whether the side characters are happy or not. It doesn't feel as impactful because lives aren't necessarily changed like in the first one. Do Donald and Daisy get together? Oh man, I really hope so. What about Horace Horsecollar? Does he fall in love? Did you kill the clock from It's a Small World or Hook from Peter Pan? I really wanted Epic Mickey 2 to be great, but it felt like it had so much to live up to that it didn't really know where to take itself. I've been thinking about Epic Mickey ever since the remake was announced, and I'm still excited for it, but it's strange to think about what happened after the first game. There are plenty of stories about what Epic Mickey 2 was supposed to be, and what greatness it could hold, but looking at what we got, it's clear many corners were cut. I've heard some talk about whether Epic Mickey 2 could be remade if the first remake does well, but I gotta be honest, I doubt that'll happen. The game was just too different from what fans originally loved. If anything, I could see what Purple Lamp did with Battle for Bikini Bottom, where they remade the first game and then made their own based around it. And one thing I want to make clear is I don't think the game should be forgotten. Far from it, there were still incredible people behind its creation, like Jim and Warren Spector, and there are still fans of both games. If there's anything to learn from these games, it's to not rush something. Epic Mickey took years to come out and surprised fans everywhere, but with how rushed Epic Mickey 2 was, it's no surprise that it left fans confused.
If you want to be an actor, there are ways to be an actor today. You could be one today. Get involved in the activity, because any star, any big celebrity, any working actor that you've ever met has done that to some degree, in different ways depending on what generation we're talking about. But we've gotten involved in theater. We've done little plays. We've thrown together a showcase or a one-man show. I do that because it keeps me, it reminds me that I'm an actor, If you're waiting, if you find yourself waiting or hoping that somebody will find you and you haven't even baited the hook, so to speak, you haven't put anything out there for someone to be attracted to, then you're going to wait, a few lifetimes. It's going to take a while. Send another letter, create another recording, make another YouTube video, put it out on social media, do it again the next day, and get some attention.
Talking to Jim was an absolute delight, and especially learning a bit more behind the scenes. If you'd like to hear our full conversation, you can find a link of it in the description below. We talk more on Epic Mickey, voice acting, the dangers of AI, and a whole lot more, so please, if you're interested, go check it out. It was so much fun. You can find Jim Meskimen on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, or if you're in the Burbank area this upcoming September, you can see Jim live on stage at the Gary Marshall Theater with his show, Jimpressions. It's one night only and has a lot of wonderful segments to look forward to. Jim was telling me about it in our talk together, and he's clearly put a ton of work into it. So if you're in the area, go check it out. A link will be in the description for that as well. Now, that's just what I think went wrong with Epic Mickey 2, but what about you? How do you think Epic Mickey 2 could have been improved upon? Let me know in the comments. Anyway guys, thank you for watching this video, and remember...
Oh, if you forget anything today, don't forget this. Chase the chaos.